Hi everyone, welcome to this follow-up video to my last car financing video. So this is basically covering some of the comments that I've had since I produced that video about financing a car. So some of these will be controversial, some of these won't be, but let's get through it. Please like, subscribe and put your notification bells on. Please also put comments as well in the comments section below based on what you hear and see. So let's get on with it. So some of the comments I had from people that I know and don't know. Firstly, one was around car leasing. So literally you lease a car, like renting a house or renting a room. You pay a deposit and you pay fixed monthlies, and then you hand the car back at the end of the lease. The car is not yours. I know there is an option where you can potentially ask the lender or the lease company to get a potential quotation to buy the car from them, but that is not guaranteed. So that is an optional thing that some leasing companies do. So the point with this is that, and I've seen many YouTube channels that sort of promote leasing and financing generally, it is the biggest wealth killer of all, because you just literally can't get off the hamster wheel. So you lease a car out, you come to the end of the lease, and then what do you do then? Again, there are lots of people that are on YouTube, like, I mean, nothing against these guys and girls, but you know, some of the stuff they come out with, it's just crazy logic. Like, I think not definitely a car guru, and some other ones that probably, I don't know, making money from sponsorship deals from car companies and others, trying to push this agenda. I just don't get it. It might not work for everyone. If you've got the money to go and buy a car outright, go and buy it. That's my advice. But with this car leasing option, you lease it for 3 years or whatever it is, you hand the car back, and then you go, what do you do then? You're left with no car. You've paid, and this is the important bit, you've paid, what is it, 100, 200, 300 pounds, sometimes even more than that, to lease a car out per month. And that racks up over 3 years, say 8 grand, 9 grand, 10 grand, 15 grand, whatever it is. You spend that money, you hand that back, that money's not yours, it's gone. Then you go to the next one. So these leasing companies, the way they make money is you lease the car from them, they get it back from you, and then they sell it to auction, or they may lease it out again. And basically, until they kill that car off, they'll just keep leasing it. It's like renting a house or renting a room. The landlord invariably makes money. All right, there is wear and tear, but there are guidelines around wear and tear. And essentially, the person who's leasing the car needs to make sure that they stay within the mileage limit and fair wear and tear. And there's industry standards for that. So you can't go around joyriding the car and you know, doing donuts and wheel spins and everything, and then hand the car back and say, here you go, I've got my money's worth, I'll move on. Essentially, it's a lose-lose situation. And we just have this, just generally in the UK and probably other countries as well, because I sort of not researched as far as a lot of other countries, but there are definitely in the UK, we have this mentality where we just want to get the latest car, latest, newest, shiniest car. Yeah, before car financing and all these different finance options came around, people just went out and bought a car, or second-hand, new if they could afford it, and they kept it until they ran into the ground. You know, that was it. But now this car financing has basically encouraged customers to go and buy it and keep leasing and keep leasing and keep leasing. You're basically locked in. It's like a loyalty card with the car manufacturers and the dealers. They just keep you locked in. They promote PCPs more than PCHs because there's more money in it for them. Because there's not much margins in the actual sale of the car, it's more in the financing. So they make money in that, mostly in PCPs. PCHs, which is the leasing stuff I just talked about, you're basically, the car is not yours, you hand it back, then you pay another X amount per month for another 3-year, 4-year deal. When do you get off this wheel of keep paying out a monthly expense? And if your personal circumstances change, you then have a major issue of trying to pay monthly installments, you know, with a product that isn't yours. You know, ownership is a major problem. I have a problem with ownership because if the thing is not yours, then what's the benefit of it? something substantial as a car. I know it's a depreciating asset. I get the stuff about depreciation. I get the stuff around having to service the car, but that exists if it's a second-hand car. Once you drive it off the forecourt, whether it's a PCH or PCP, the car becomes second-hand. Yeah, right. There is a certain amount of certainty around you having bought the car from new, so you know any issues with it. But beyond that, everything is an unknown. So you don't know what's going to happen in about 6 months' time. You could generate technical faults, mechanical faults, any other faults. And then you're left with a car that you need to repair, keep taking it back, and then, all right, it's under manufacturer's warranty. But this monthly installment is a thing I don't like. I just don't like it. You look at, for instance, and we do a separate video on this, house mortgages. There are a lot more repossessions now because people can't afford the monthly mortgage payments because of interest rates at 5.5%, whatever it is. Bank of England hasn't said categorically they're going to reduce rates. In fact, the last Bank of England meeting in May 2024, they held rates. There was large market anticipation, quite a high level of market anticipation that they would reduce rates. They didn't. Now, some of the lenders on the back of that increased rates. Some of them, I think, now have recently dropped rates. But essentially, the point is that we're not going to go back to a world where we have, 2%, 1%, 0.5% interest rates. That was on the back of, if you remember, 2008, the banking crisis, where the Bank of England had to reduce rates, and then subsequently we had a couple of other external shocks, such as COVID, which has meant that the people can't buy the sort of things they want to buy because times are hard, there's a recession, these sorts of things, and also the war in Ukraine hasn't probably helped either. In that house, everything else has gone up in price along with COVID. So we're not going to go back to a world where it's going to be 1%, 0.5% interest rate. So PCPs, for instance, you're not going to see, probably lower than 1%. 2%, or probably even 3%. I think the lowest I've seen PCPs is 3%. I know they do 0% deals, but they're not free. It's not interest free as such, because some of that cost of it being interest free is baked into the PCP deal or into the price of the car. Some way that they're not going to be losing all that money on interest by giving you 0%, when Bank of England base rates and every other form of lending has an interest charge to it. So just to summarize with this, on this PCH point, please don't get into a lease if you can help it. Because when you come out and you hand the car back, you've got to do it again. You pay another 15 grand. And in the space of 6 years, you can break like this. In the space of 6 years, you've taken out 2 cars. Each car costs you 10 grand each, or 20 grand each, or 15 grand. Say 15 grand each. That's 30 grand over 6 years. Compared to you buying a car, second hand, or one on a hire purchase, and then the car is yours. All right, the car might be... I suggest this, say this. Please buy within your means and what you need the car for. Don't get overly excited and let your emotions take over purchasing a car. I know it is highly... Some people find buying a car highly desirable, and certain cars, certain brands. But please buy what you can afford and what you actually need. And why do you need that car? Think about that as well before you jump in, because before car financing came along, I think people were a bit more sensible with cars. The people that could afford, like the millionaires and like, they would just go out and buy it. And that's the case now. Millionaires that can afford cars, they just go out and buy it. They don't go and rent cars or hire cars. They get it and then they sell it and then buy another one. So it's the same with PCHs. It's a bad idea. It's getting pushed out everywhere because PCPs are getting bad coverage because of the interest rates around it, and some of the commissions people are getting from it, and the financial conduct authorities investigation around that side of leasing cars like PCPs. There's more of a promotion, more of a push around PCHs, because the alternative is literally buying the car and then doing it over paying over in monthly installments, and the car's yours at the end, a hire purchase. or a purchase agreement, where you pay for the car, pay deposit up front, and then you pay monthly installments to pay back the cost of the car, and then the car is yours at the end. I would suggest people do that, but that is degraded quite a lot, because you're paying more each month because you're paying for the cost of the car over the period of the agreement. Whereas a PCH lease agreement, you're just paying a rental amount over the tenure of the finance agreement. So obviously the car's not yours. Whereas a PCP, you're paying for the depreciated value of the car at the end of the finance period. So that's what you're paying with the PCP, which is why the monthly cost on that is lower generally compared to the other two main type of finance agreements, albeit lease agreements, PCHs could be slightly less depending on what type of car and whether you go through comparison websites like Lease Loco and Select Financing, or Select Leasing. So yeah, so as you probably figured out, I don't agree with leasing cars. I just don't like the idea. So I looked into it, and I just think it doesn't work. Even if you get like something like now, where you got electric Vauxhall Mockers for like £175 a month, and again, you won't, even if you do this, you need to go down a route where you're not paying a huge upfront deposit or an amount. When you do that and you reduce the number of miles that you do per year, it bumps up the monthly. So you're paying 230, 250, 280, 300 pounds. And when you do sort of 300 pounds over, say, 3 years or 2 years, you're looking about 8-9 grand at least, 6 grand at least, 7 grand at least. And then you do that again, so that's another 6 grand. That's 12 grand compared to buying a car that is within your means and actually what you need. Yeah. And you pay for the cost of the car, I don't know, 10, 12 grand, but the car is yours, 15 grand. Doesn't have to be electric, because the marginal benefits, or the benefits of electric cars are marginal. Next year you have to pay road tax for electric cars. You will do insurance, which is predominantly higher than combustion engine cars. You still have to do a service, albeit with probably less cost involved, and the frequency might be less, but you still have to do that. Weight of the electric car means that you'll probably change your brakes more frequently and the tyres. How reliable the batteries are is anyone's guess. They're improving the technology, but you probably need to wait a bit more before they have cars that are more robust with their batteries. And a lot of cars that are electric are based on the sort of an internal combustion engine platform. So it's just literally a way that manufacturers save money by not having to change their production lines totally to electric, and they're sort of trying to manipulate the existing production lines to accommodate electric cars and the production of it. So yeah, so if you buy a new car, 15 grand, whatever it is, and then you have to obviously have the capacity to pay for it either monthly and then own it outright, or pay for it all up front, and then you can sell it. You're not paying monthly installments. You pay for the car all up front, and the car is yours, and you can sell it whenever you want. You make money, and then you can also, or the money that you save from having to pay monthly installments, you'd have that as disposable income, or save that or invest that somewhere else. Or if you're paying monthly installments, you know that you'll have a car at the end of it, and then you keep it until however long you want. Some of this comes back to mentality around what you're desiring in terms of a car, what your needs are and why, what your sort of plans are around car retention in future years, not just 1-2 years, but longer than that. I'm not in the game of keeping up with the Joneses and trying to please the Joneses, because the Joneses are not going to be paying your bills every month, and they won't be concerned about your state of your finances. They'll probably start laughing if you find that you can't afford certain things and you're struggling and you're having to sell a lot of stuff, including your car and your house and God knows where else. They'll probably be a bit nosy then. But please don't put pressure on yourself to keep up with the Joneses. So, leasing, not a great idea. I mean, I don't like any of the different types of leasing. My advice to you would be, think about the questions I've asked, posed in this video. Take time out, consider it seriously. If you can, buy a car outright and own it, because you save a lot of money having to pay monthly installments. So you can invest that money or save it, and you would then start to go some way towards improving your financial capability and capacity, because a lot of the people that are wealthy and well off don't lease cars. Some of the social media influencers are probably in the game of suggesting leasing cars, because they are being given cars by manufacturers and brands, so they push them out so they can promote them, and then they just hand the car back, or they've got the money to buy it because they're earning a lot of money through social media, or they're a celebrity or whatever. You don't find Cristiano Ronaldo going to say, oh yeah, I'm going to go, and when he was at Man United, I want to go lease a car. That's, you just, you can afford it, so go and buy one. It comes back to this mentality of, what did you do before, or what would you have done if car financing didn't exist? It's a money-making scheme for car companies, manufacturers and dealerships. Even just final point, on the leasing point, the car manufacturers that promote large savings on leasing deals, on PCHs, because they want to push their cars out. I was looking a couple of weeks ago on Lease Loco. They're pushing out deals on a lot of Volkswagen cars because they're rubbish. ID3's got problems, internal problems, like I'm talking about electric here. ID4's have got problems, it's not desirable, so they're making large scale reductions, so they encourage people to buy. ID5s have been reduced for God knows how many weeks and months. So the cars that are not desirable or not that great, there's a catch. They are reduced for a reason. If you want the better cars, you're going to have to pay for it. And the mentality of, let's shortcut this, is like, I want everything now. I don't want to save for it. I want everything now. I want a six-pack now. So I'm not going to go to the gym every day for the next 6 years. I'm just going to do this now. I want it now. So I'm going to eat some supplement. I'm going to watch some video. I'm going to do intermittent fasting, which I'm going to do a separate video on, actually. I'm going to do all this, and I want the six-pack tomorrow. I'm going to do plastic surgery and get a body like Arnie. Well, that's not going to work in a month of Sundays. It's not sustainable. It comes back to this methodology and mentality and ideology around finite and infinite games. So the people that like stuff tomorrow, need it now, it's a finite game. It's like a football game. You've got fixed rules. Somebody's going to win, somebody's going to lose. So sometimes you'll be ahead of the game, sometimes you'll be behind in games. Whereas an infinite game is, you're in competition with yourself, but you're in the process of continuous improvement, and you're considering and reflecting upon always, what do you need, what don't I need, why being the important question. It's not more, I'd put why in it. Ask yourself why, then what first. Why do I need this? What is my outlook? How long am I going to keep this for? What is my budget? These sorts of things. And ask yourself some of those honest questions. Because people hide behind a lot of this, the thing of, oh, it's a lovely brand, the dealer was great, he gave me tea, he gave me biscuits, it's a wonderful deal. They're just, they're taking you for a ride. Now, some people, the other comment, the main comment I from the first video was, people were saying, well, you've got to service the car. You've got to do major services at 3 years. Why don't you hand it back? Well, let me ask you this. You're servicing a car. You had it from new. You're on a PCP deal, or even leasing. You've got to do the servicing, and you pay for the service. I don't know, whatever it is. I mean, BMW, it'll be minor service is about a couple £100. Major service is about £400 or £500. I don't know how the other brands work, but you've done that. But you'd have to service the car, and then you'd have to hand it back if you're leasing it. But if you're keeping it, you do the service and you keep it. What did you do? What did people do back in the 80s and 90s? Not everyone was around then. Before leasing was a thing, people used to buy cars, keep onto it, and then there's also this argument about garages making money out of people. Well, with cars, unless you have a reliance on it, if you have a reliance on it, it's not a win-win situation. Unless you have a lot of money, you can buy one of these rare cars, sports cars alike, that retain their value. You service it, and then you either keep it or you sell it on, and they hold their value. Fine, but for the large mainstream, where people get into a car with often more than what they need, you see a lot of these SUVs flying around, like big boxes on wheels. It's like a craze about them. I don't know what it is, but it's a craze about driving big boxes around on wheels. And some of them look really ugly. Not going to name any names, but though these sort of cars have been bought, they have to be serviced and you hand them back. And then the same with the PCP. PCP is an expensive way for basically leasing or renting a car. Unless you've got the balloon payment at the end to pay down, you're going to have to hand it back. So with PCPs, you're paying the monthly installments, and then you're having to save the money per month or whatever to enable you to pay the balloon payment at the final month, in the final month of the finance agreement. A lot of people don't. They just hand it back. They don't want to pay 14, 15, 16 grand for a car that was retailed at 30 grand, say. They just won't pay, just hand it back. They do the service, and when you get to the major service, they hand it back, and the MOT at 3 years. First MOT, they hand it back. So I'd flip that ideology on its head and say, do the service, own the car, and then be done with all this leasing. At least then you have the car that you want, and then you don't have to pay the monthly installment. You'll have to do another service in so many months' time. But every time you hire or lease a car or PCP a car, you're going to have to do service. The only thing you probably avoid is an MOT. I just don't get it. You can probably tell by my voice that I'm getting more and more frustrated by actually, when I run through the scenarios, it makes me frustrated that people are actually still handing their money over to dealers and manufacturers, saying, "Here you go. I'm locked in. I put my seatbelt on. I'm locked in. I'm loving it," like the advert goes. And I'm here for the long. I'm here for the long haul. If you want to do that, fine, but you're basically blowing a lot of money. If you've got that amount of wealth, go and buy the car. Why are you on the rent it for? You see loads of people on YouTube, like I said, not definitely a car guru. Yanni, these sort of Yanomize, these sort of people. Yanni's a different animal because he's got a business, and his car wrapping. So he's in the game of buying and selling cars. But you notice that his cars, he can afford to buy a car. I mean, some of his cars are over 200k, 300k. But he's making money from YouTube. He's a social media influencer. He's got a business. He's wrapping cars for celebrities. So there's a business model there underpinning his ability to purchase and then buy and sell cars. He's in that game. But for the mainstream people, we just have to think about what we're getting ourselves into by signing these agreements. You're just burning money. So have a think about what I said. Please put comments in the note and in the comments section below. Put your notification bell on. Put your subscriptions on. We want to help you with all sorts of things in your life. So hopefully you found this video useful, and see you in the next one.